We are focusing on a book called Coaching for Systems and Teacher Change, and this is our first look at session 1. We're going to go over the introduction, and we're going to do chapter 2. If you would like a copy of this, we will be sharing the slides, and at some point we will share those with you. So we would like to acknowledge that Dyslexia Canada and IDA Ontario serve citizens on the traditional territories of all of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis across Canada. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to our country. This acknowledgement reminds us of our responsibilities to our relationships and the ancestral lands on which we learn, share, and live. So welcome. We are so glad that you're here. We hope to see people come together. Coaches are often very isolated, and we want to bring coaches across the province together, learning from each other. So the focus of this book is, what does the research say about how to coach, how to provide effective coaching? So this book provides practical tools which are available in electronic format that coaches can use to plan powerful coaching sessions, conduct efficient yet impactful sessions with teachers and teams to support their development, and reflect on sessions to ensure coaching continuously improves. So we do want to recognize that there's like a few people that are still hoping for their books in the mail. They're still trying to get those ordered. So we realize that some of you don't have your book yet. That's okay. We're just really glad you're here, and hopefully you'll get something out of this session, even without having pre-read the chapters. For those of you that do have the book, we really, really do hope that you are spending a few minutes each day, a few minutes each, looking at some of the chapters and previewing this book. So, sorry, I should have just introduced myself first. My name is Sharon Korosi. I have been a coach. My most recent job was working as a literacy coach with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. I recently retired, but I've always loved working with teachers and coaching teachers. And so that's my background in special education, working with children with multiple different needs. And then I'm going to turn it over now to Jordan.
Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue. My name is Jordan Sloan, and I am a bilingual literacy coach in Renfrew County, and I am here to facilitate the French portion of this. If you are part of the group that is here for le français, can you please go ahead and put an F in brackets at the end of your name like I did? Alors pour faire ça, vous allez aux 3 points dans le coin de votre écran, et vous allez au rename, et vous allez ajouter un F. Et de cette façon-là, on peut vous mettre dans les bonnes salles de breakout. Vous allez être capable de parler en français et de discuter ensemble en français. So the idea really is that we are going to have these bilingual sessions. We're going to talk to the whole group in English. We're going to have the breakout rooms in French and in English. You can ask questions in the language of your choice, and we will answer you. We also wanted to point out that the book is available through Caversham, and the link is in the chat. So if you do want to go ahead and order that through there, that's going to be an option for you too. Alors, on va continuer. Et juste pour vous donner un aperçu du livre, so an overview of what is happening in this great book. Section 1 is going to present the foundational research and the goals of coaching, so some of the typical activities and common challenges. We're going to talk about why coaching has played such a powerful role in professional learning in schools from a historical and a contemporary view. We're going to discuss the goals of coaching, explaining typical activities completed by coaches, and bring to light common challenges. Moreover, section 1 really presents the defining features of a coaching framework for 2 types of coaching. We're going to talk about coaching individual teachers from K through 12 and coaching teams of educators, which would include our administrators, our principals, our general and special education educators, anyone really that provides support. This section is the first 4 chapters of the book, and we're going to talk about it in our first 3 meets together. We're going to just really quickly go through chapter 1, just because it is a historical perspective. So if you do want to understand more about the origins and the history behind everything, I invite you to take a look at chapter 1, but we're going to dig into chapter 2, coaching goals, activities, and common challenges. Once we finish section 1, we'll move through section 2, and we're going to unpack the coaching framework in greater detail. We're going to learn about building strong relationships and alliances with teachers and teams. We're going to look at tools and resources to enhance teacher and team readiness for change in coaching scenarios. This is basically the skinny on how to plan, how to conduct, and how to reflect on coaching cycles with teachers and teams. And then finally, the third part is going to focus on considerations and strategies for implementing coaching. So, for example, a checklist, resources for identifying fiscal costs of coaching, an approach for identifying the impact of coaching. There's a set of coaching competencies and a coaching fidelity measurement tool. Just to remind you that you can download all of the extra pieces, all of the things that you need. You can download them to print to photocopy at the Brooks Publishing Download Hub. Once we finish these 3 sections, that's going to take us pretty close into the spring, sort of into the new year. And that's when we're going to reach out to you and talk about what we could do as some next steps, how we can support you, whether that's through continuing discussion groups, whether we want to look at another book, articles, or whatnot. But we're hoping to continue this group all the way through the year. So we're coming together as a group, as a large group from all over the place, and we're all coming from our own starting places. We've all been experiencing this learning at our own pace and in our own way. So as we discuss this book, as we carry out different discussions in breakout rooms, we're going to talk about the coaching role. We're going to talk a lot about the implementation of the new curriculum with teachers and teaching teams. So please be mindful that everyone is coming to this from their own understanding and from a place of trying to improve their practice. So we have set up some group norms if you just want to take a look on there, and really just the idea of, considering what you learned from engaging with different viewpoints, engaging critically with the content, but not allowing your first thought to be your only thought. So like I said, we're not going to spend a great deal of time on that first chapter, but we did want to point out from the historical to contemporary view, what has come of that is these 3 coaching roles. And we're going to dig into these after our first breakout room. But a quick overview is that there are teacher coaches. So teaching coaches who support teachers, academic instruction, behavioral practices, socio-emotional support for students. We've got systems coaches who move from working with teachers more into a systems role, supporting a team of educators responsible for leading implementation efforts to improve the team practice. And then there's that hybrid coaching, which is a little of both, which is what I do in my role.
Okay, so what I'm looking at, what we're going to be looking at next is we're moving into chapter 2. And there's a lot in chapter 2. I found it a very heavy chapter, mainly because there was a lot of information. So it's talking about the teacher, the goals of the teacher coaches, the system coaches, and the hybrid coaching. Like, why are these jobs? Why do they exist, and how do they work? What are the typical activities for one-to-one coaches, system coaches, and coaches in hybrid models? And how are they represented in this text coaching framework? We're going to be talking about that. And then what are the common barriers that coaches face? So what's the purpose of a teacher coach? I'm just going to pop in the answer for you. Whoopsie, sorry, I went too fast. It's to improve teacher practice, to ultimately improve student outcome. That's why we're all in the job. That's what we love to do. We want to improve the outcome for our students, and we want to assist those teachers that that they're looking for new ways to approach perhaps a new curriculum, or that we can just come alongside them. And not that any of us are experts. And I think that's really important that teachers know that we're not necessarily the experts. We're all working as a team to improve student outcome. So we're going to look at page 128. If you have your book, I'm going to just put it up onto the screen for those of you that don't have that yet. And hopefully you're able to see. These are the most common, when they've done research, these are the most common activities that coaching teachers, that role just alone, just coaching teachers, this is the most common activities. So you may be teaching students, assessing students, planning and conducting professional learning workshops based on student needs, conducting coaching sessions for teachers that consist of ongoing cycles of observing, modeling, providing performance feedback, and using alliance strategies. You may be planning and reflecting on coaching sessions, meeting with administrators, leading grade level or content area teacher meetings, coordinating curricular programs, that may be ordering materials, distributing the materials, determining the assessment tools, the instructional schedules, writing proposals to obtain additional funding, advocating for improvements in school policies and procedures, co-planning with teachers. Maybe you are substituting for teachers, supply teaching for teachers that are absent. And maybe you are asked at some points to supervise teachers or students during a non-instructional time. Excuse me, what the research showed was out of all those lists of activities that we spent a lot of our time on, that the most impactful ones were the teacher coaching that specifically includes recurring cycles of observing, modeling, providing performance feedback, and using alliance strategies, which they go into a little bit about how do you build that relationship with a teacher that may or may not want you in their classroom. They may not want to work with you. How do you cope with that? That's really tricky. What I was a little bit surprised of when I was going through this was the observing piece was right at the top. I thought, wow, like you have to have a really good relationship with the teacher, because I know for myself, when I was in the classroom and someone came in to observe me, I found that was very intimidating. So we have to make sure that we have built that relationship before we sort of dive into what shows by research what works. The second activity that also leads to improved student outcome was planning and conducting professional learning workshops for teachers. Again, I found this really interesting. Professional learning should build teacher knowledge with active learning activities, embed multiple opportunities for teachers to practice and talk about what they are learning with other participants, be of sufficient duration and frequency to ensure teachers can adequately learn the information, and connect what teachers are learning to their current practice.
All right. So a third role that you may have as the literacy coach may be to help with systems coaching. So the goal of the systems coach is to improve the process of how a team leads school or even district-wide implementation of a given program, practice, or intervention. So in our case, that's the rollout of the new language curriculum. And a lot of that's going to be around principals and school literacy leads and coaches. Our goal is to improve how the team leads, thus our team's processes rather than individual team practice is what coaches aim to challenge first. The expected changes do not remain at the team level. The idea is really that the changes in the team will be a conduit for improvement of the overall system. So these are improvements to the overall school system that are hypothesized to link back to the change then in team practice. And really the idea is to improve the system so that student outcomes improve. So what does systems coaching look like? If you're still looking at the book, you can go to page 130 and there's a list of common system coaching activities. It's less about educational innovation and more about the nature of change across the organization. So coaches provide support to a team of educators responsible for leading and implementing a system or district-wide innovation. It looks at the broader picture. We're looking more at building buy-in among staff for change, monitoring implementation with fidelity, and using data for decision-making. Research shows that the most effective practices for systems coaching are similar to the findings of teacher coaching. First, it's all got to be linked to the needs of our students, right? So coaches allocate their time to two central activities at the system level, facilitating professional learning workshops for teams or for an entire school staff. So for example, in my case today, I'm working with all of the French immersion high school teachers to work through literacy in the grade 9 setting. We're also conducting coaching sessions with the implementation team that consist of those ongoing cycles. So using the alliance strategies, observing, modeling, and providing feedback. As with those serving in the teacher coaching role, systems coaches will need to critically reflect on how to allocate their time. And then finally, there's that hybrid model, which is a little of both, right? We're combining a little bit of coaching teachers individually, so spending the time in the classroom, doing the work with the teachers, as well as providing professional learning workshops and working with the implementation and the leadership team.
We all know in the coaching role, whether you've been in it just for a few weeks or for a few years, that there are common barriers that will affect the work that we do. So some of the barriers are addressed in this book, which is exciting. This is like really interesting reading. So all chapters talk about the minimal opportunities for formal preparation. A lot of us jump into the job. We don't have any type of training. It's all based on anything that we have done as individual teachers. We are also going to be looking at the broad scope of work that teachers, coaches are assigned so many activities that it's hard to be effective, and that's addressed in those chapters. There's a lack of leadership support at the school principal level. So perhaps the principal doesn't understand what your role is when you come into the school. If you're working with a teacher, How is it assigned? Does the principal decide that? Does the superintendent decide that? Who is making those decisions? And how is it communicated to the teachers? Because often teachers feel like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. They've assigned a coach to me. I think I'm being evaluated. And right at the very beginning, we have a wall built up, and we don't want that to happen. So if the principal understands the role and the whole purpose of coaching, it's to improve student outcome, then it puts everybody sort of on the same page. It doesn't have that like, oh, they're the expert and I know nothing. The lack of professional coaching of the core competencies. So nobody's agreed on what is it that we're going in to do? What is it that we're talking about? Do we all have the same understanding of the science of reading research? Like where are we at with all of that? So nothing has been set. And then finally, the non-systematic implementation of coaching. So every coach has their own way of doing things. There's no rhyme or reason sometimes for how it's set up. So again, we'll be looking at that. So the impact of barriers, the most alarming, is that all this money is spent on having coaches and nothing changes. There's no improvement to the system, team practice, student outcomes, nothing changes. The resources are not being maximized. Principals may force teachers to work with a coach and the teacher doesn't understand why, so it hasn't been made clear to them. And then coaches just become frustrated and leave the position. So then you've got that whole new learning curve again for a new person coming in as a coach, and the cycle of just like ineffective coaching just doesn't work.
Okay, thank you all for coming back. We do know that a few of you do have to leave because this is our 40-minute point, and we're just going to do a quick little wrap up of our day and then open it up to big group discussion or questions. And we just want to remind you that coaching can be very effective, but not all coaching results in improved student and teacher outcomes or the effective implementation of a system-wide initiative. So next time we are going to take a closer look at what the research shows to be most effective, and that's going to cover chapter 3. And Sharon's going to put up the next slide, which is just going to show us how we're going to cover the chapters. So we're going to do a chapter in every biweekly session, Mondays at 11:30. And the idea again is to have us in and out by that 10 after 12 point so that we are able to get back. We know not everybody has a whole lot of time, but join the sessions that you are able to. And we are always going to have this time at the end from 12:10, 12:15 to 12:30 that is going to be open to sticking around for some bigger group discussions. So I thank you all for coming to our first session. We will see you in 2 weeks.